The first clue wasn't a text message, a late night, or even a lipstick-stained collar. It was a performance. A flawless, spine-tingling, utterly mesmerizing performance that I had front-row seats to, a performance that ruined my life. It was Donna's big night, the culmination of months of rehearsals with her dance company. She was the centerpiece, the star, and I sat there in the dim auditorium, surrounded by strangers who clapped politely, utterly oblivious to the storm that was brewing in my chest. There she was, in her crimson dress, moving like poetry set to music. Every spin, every leap, every moment was electrifying. But my eyes weren't on Donna. They were on him. The choreographer. He was in the shadows, off stage, but I saw everything. The way his eyes followed her, not like a director proud of his work, but like a predator savoring his prey. The way she smiled at him when the curtain fell, too wide, too intimate. It wasn't the kind of smile you give your husband sitting in the audience. And then came the bow. The audience roared their approval as Donna and the rest of the dancers lined up, but when she extended her hand to him, pulling him onto the stage, the applause grew deafening. He hugged her, the kind of hug that lasted just a second too long. I gritted my teeth, clapping mechanically, trying to convince myself I was imagining it. But I wasn't. What happened after the show was what really tipped the scales. As the crowd thinned and Donna got swept up in a sea of admirers, I hung back. Watching. Waiting. And then I saw it, the slip of paper he handed her, the way her hand lingered on his wrist as she took it. She thought I didn't notice. But I did. The night after the show, Donna was unusually chatty, a rare occurrence lately. She sat at the dining table with a glass of white wine, her face still glowing from the applause of the crowd earlier. I sat across from her, nursing a scotch, watching her animatedly recount every moment of the performance. She seemed happy, too happy. It was as though she was trying to distract me, or maybe herself. I think the audience really connected with the story, she said, gesturing with her hands like she was still in choreographer mode. Julian was so proud. He said the troupe had never. Julian? I interrupted. She paused mid-sentence. It was subtle, but her eyes flicked to the side for a fraction of a second, as if weighing her next words. You know, Julian, the choreographer. He's been incredible to work with. Her tone was too casual. Forced. I didn't push further, but a knot of unease settled in my chest. I let her prattle on, nodding when it seemed appropriate, but my mind was elsewhere. Julian. I hadn't even known his name until that moment, but now it felt like he'd been lingering in the corners of my life, just out of sight, for months. The next morning, I woke early and decided to clear my head with a run. Donna was still asleep, sprawled out across the bed like someone without a care in the world. I slipped out quietly, lacing up my sneakers as I stepped into the cool morning air. The run didn't help. Every stride brought the same image to mind, Donna, standing on that stage, pulling Julian into the spotlight. That goddamn smile. When I got back, she was in the kitchen making coffee, humming the same tune I'd heard her rehearse countless times. She greeted me with a peck on the cheek and slid a mug of coffee my way. Big plans today? She asked. Just the usual, I said, trying to sound nonchalant. She nodded and turned back to the stove, but I couldn't shake the feeling that something was off. Her cheerfulness seemed too practiced, too deliberate. I made up my mind right then and there. I needed answers. And I wasn't going to get them by sitting around, waiting for the truth to fall into my lap. The opportunity came sooner than I expected. That afternoon, Donna left for another rehearsal, leaving me alone in the house. I told myself I was just going to tidy up, maybe organize some of the papers cluttering her desk in the study. But as I sifted through the neatly stacked scripts and schedules, my eyes landed on a folded piece of paper tucked into the corner of the drawer. It was plain, unassuming, like something hastily stashed away. My hands hesitated for a moment before I unfolded it. The handwriting was unmistakably familiar, flowing in a way that suggested care and intention. And there, at the bottom, was the name that stopped me cold, Julian. Donna. Last night was unforgettable. I've never felt such a connection with anyone before. You are my muse, my light, my everything. I'll be counting the minutes until I see you again. Julian. My first reaction was disbelief. This couldn't be real. Julian was just her choreographer, her mentor. He wasn't supposed to feel this way about her, and she wasn't supposed to let him. But as I read the note again, anger replaced denial. There was no mistaking the intimacy in his words. This wasn't admiration or professional respect. This was something else entirely. I sat there, gripping the note so tightly my knuckles turned white. My heart pounded in my chest, each beat reverberating like a drum in my ears. I wanted to confront her right then and there, but something stopped me. I needed more. A single note wasn't enough. I needed proof, undeniable evidence that would force her to admit the truth. Over the next week, I watched Donna like a hawk. Every move, every glance, every word she said was under scrutiny. I started noticing things I'd overlooked before, the way she lingered a little too long on her phone, the way her smile faded when she thought I wasn't looking, the faint scent of cologne on her clothes that didn't belong to me. Then came the tipping point. It was Friday evening, and Donna had just left for another late-night rehearsal. I decided to follow her, my heart pounding as I slipped into my car and kept a safe distance. I didn't know what I was looking for, but I knew I had to see it for myself. She drove to the studio, just as she said she would, but instead of going inside, she parked in the lot and sat there for a few minutes. Then Julian's car pulled up. I watched as he got out and walked over to her car. She rolled down the window, and they spoke for a moment before she stepped out. He pulled her into an embrace, and I saw her head tilt back as she laughed at something he said. They looked too comfortable, too familiar. My stomach churned as they walked into the studio together, arm in arm. I sat there for what felt like hours, staring at the now empty parking lot. The anger that had been simmering for days finally boiled over. This wasn't just a suspicion anymore, it was fact. Donna was cheating on me, and Julian was the one she was betraying me with. When she got home later that night, I was still sitting in the living room, waiting. She greeted me with her usual smile, but I couldn't bring myself to return it. I just sat there, watching her, wondering how long she thought she could keep this charade going. She didn't ask why I was so quiet, didn't seem to notice the tension in the air. It was almost insulting how easily she slipped back into her role as the devoted wife. But now, I knew the truth. And there was no going back. The moment of confrontation was inevitable. I had spent days replaying scenarios in my mind, imagining every possible reaction Donna might have and how I would counter it. But nothing prepared me for the raw reality of it. It was Saturday evening when I finally decided to confront her. Donna had just returned from another rehearsal, still glowing from what I now knew wasn't just a professional high. She walked into the house carrying her dance bag, her face lighting up when she saw me sitting at the dining table. For once, I wasn't going to play along. "Hey, Paul," she said, setting her bag on the chair. "You're home early. Everything okay?" I stared at her for a moment, taking in every detail, the faint sheen of sweat on her forehead, the way her hair was pulled back just a little too perfectly, and the faint scent of cologne that wasn't hers. "We need to talk," I said finally. Her smile faltered. "What's wrong?" "Sit down," I said, my tone flat. She hesitated but complied, pulling out the chair across from me. I took a deep breath, feeling the weight of what I was about to say. "Who is Julian to you?" Her reaction was immediate, too immediate. Her face flushed, and she quickly looked away, fiddling with the strap of her bag. "He's my choreographer," she said, trying to keep her voice steady. "You know that." "Cut the bullshit," I snapped, my voice rising. "I'm not asking about his title. I'm asking who he really is to you. Don't lie to me, Donna." Her head snapped up, and for the first time, I saw panic in her eyes. "What's going on with you? Why are you acting like this?" I pulled the handwritten note from my pocket and slid it across the table. "Because of this." She stared at the note, her hands trembling as she picked it up. Her face turned pale as she read it, and for a moment, I thought she might try to deny it. But when she looked back at me, her eyes were filled with tears. "It's not what it looks like," she said, her voice barely above a whisper. I laughed bitterly. That's the best you've got? After all this time, that's what you're going with? Her tears began to flow freely now. Paul, please. Let me explain. Explain? I barked, slamming my hand on the table. Explain what, Donna? That you've been sneaking around behind my back? That the man you've been spending all these nights with isn't just a choreographer but something more? What the hell is there to explain? She buried her face in her hands, sobbing. I didn't mean for this to happen, she choked out. It wasn't supposed to go this far. Wasn't supposed to go this far? I repeated, my voice dripping with sarcasm. So you admit it, then? You admit there's something going on between you and Julian? She didn't answer, but her silence spoke volumes. I stood up, pacing back and forth, my hands clenched into fists. Do you even realize what you've done? I demanded. You've destroyed everything we built. Everything. It wasn't like that, she said, her voice trembling. Paul, I love you. I never stopped loving you. I stopped in my tracks, glaring at her. You've got a hell of a way of showing it, Donna. If you love me, then why? Why would you do this? She shook her head, unable to meet my eyes. I don't know, she whispered. I was confused. Julian made me feel. Don't you dare finish that sentence, I interrupted, my voice cold. Don't you dare tell me how he made you feel. She flinched as if I'd struck her, but I didn't care. I was done playing the understanding husband. How long has this been going on? I demanded. It's not like you think, she said weakly. We never. How long? I cut her off, my tone like ice. 3 months, she admitted finally, her voice barely audible. 3 months. The words hit me like a punch to the gut. For 3 months, the woman I had loved and trusted had been lying to me, betraying me. I felt a surge of anger so intense I thought I might explode. Did you sleep with him? I asked bluntly. No, she said quickly. Too quickly. I stared at her, my jaw clenched. I don't believe you. It's the truth, she insisted, her voice rising in desperation. Paul, I swear, it never got physical. It was emotional. Emotional? I spat. So what, that makes it okay? Do you think that hurts any less? Do you think I care if it was physical or not? You betrayed me, Donna. You betrayed us. She broke down completely then, sobbing uncontrollably. But her tears didn't move me. If anything, they only fueled my anger. I wanted her to feel the same pain, the same humiliation I had felt. I wanted her to understand exactly what she had done. Get out, I said finally, my voice low and steady. She looked up at me, her face streaked with tears. What? You heard me. Get out. I can't look at you right now. Paul, please, she begged. Don't do this. We can fix this. I'll do whatever it takes. It's too late for that, I said, shaking my head. You made your choice, Donna. Now live with it. She didn't move at first, just sat there staring at me as if she couldn't believe what she was hearing. But finally, she stood up, grabbing her bag. Where am I supposed to go? She asked, her voice trembling. I don't care, I said coldly. That's not my problem. She hesitated for a moment, as if waiting for me to change my mind, but I didn't. Finally, she walked out the door, leaving me alone in the house we had once called our home. As the door slammed shut behind her, the reality of what had just happened began to sink in. I had confronted her, forced her to admit the truth. But instead of feeling relief, I felt empty. Hollow. Donna was gone, but the damage she had done remained, and I had no idea how to pick up the pieces. The idea came to me like a bolt of clarity in the fog of betrayal. I had spent days after Donna left cycling through anger, grief, and a gnawing emptiness. But amid that turmoil, a new resolve took root. I wouldn't just end this chapter of my life, I would rewrite it, and Donna would never forget the lesson. The plan required precision. I needed the right setting, the right moment, and the perfect way to deliver the message. I didn't want screaming matches or dramatic scenes. No, this was going to be clean, undeniable, and unforgettable. The invitation was simple. A text. Donna, let's talk. Dinner tomorrow night, 8 p.m. The usual spot. She responded quickly. Okay. I'd like that. The usual spot wasn't just any restaurant. It was an exclusive, upscale place where reservations had to be made weeks in advance. It had been the venue for countless anniversaries, promotions, and special nights. It was where we'd toasted to the life we'd built together. It was fitting that it would now host its unmaking. I spared no expense. I reserved the best table on the outdoor terrace, overlooking the city skyline. The maitre d', whom I'd befriended over years of visits, promised me everything would be perfect. When I arrived early, I instructed the staff on the evening's flow, champagne to start, our favorite appetizer, and finally, the moment of revelation. Donna arrived on time, dressed to the nines. She wore the black cocktail dress I had always loved, the one she saved for special occasions. As she walked in, her eyes met mine, and for a brief moment, I saw hope there. It stung, but I kept my expression calm. Paul, she said softly, taking her seat. Donna, I replied, pouring her a glass of champagne. You look beautiful. She smiled nervously, her hands gripping the stem of her glass. Thank you. I didn't expect this. I thought it was time we had an honest conversation, I said, leaning back in my chair. After everything, we deserve that, don't you think? She nodded, her eyes scanning my face for clues. Yes. We do. The appetizers arrived, and we made small talk. I kept it light, steering the conversation away from anything serious. I could see her visibly relaxing, perhaps even daring to hope that this was a reconciliation. When the main course arrived, I reached into my jacket pocket and pulled out the box. It was beautifully wrapped in silver paper with a satin bow, an elegant contrast to the weight of what it contained. I wanted to give you something, I said, sliding it across the table. She looked at me, surprised. Paul, you didn't have to. Just open it, I said. She hesitated, her hands trembling slightly as she untied the bow and removed the paper. When she lifted the lid, her expression froze. Inside was a thick envelope containing the divorce papers, and beside it, a sleek black flash drive. Her face drained of color. What is this? She whispered. Exactly what it looks like, I said calmly. The divorce papers are self-explanatory. The flash drive? That's every bit of evidence I've collected over the past few weeks, your messages with Julian, the times you lied about your whereabouts, and even a video of the two of you together in the studio parking lot. Her hand flew to her mouth, and her eyes welled up with tears. Paul, Don't, I cut her off. I didn't bring you here to argue or to hear your excuses. I brought you here because I wanted to end this the right way. No shouting, no public drama. Just the truth, laid bare. She stared at me, her tears now flowing freely. I made a mistake, she said, her voice breaking. I was stupid, selfish. But I love you, Paul. Please, we can fix this. I'll do anything. I let her words hang in the air for a moment before responding. Donna, you already did everything you could to fix this. You taught me exactly what I'm worth, and it's so much more than this. I stood, leaving the box on the table. Enjoy your evening, Donna. The tab's taken care of. And with that, I walked away, leaving her sitting there amidst the remnants of our relationship. In the days that followed, I threw myself into rebuilding my life. It wasn't about revenge, it was about reclaiming my dignity. I deleted every photo of Donna from my phone, cleared the house of her belongings, and blocked her on every platform. I wouldn't allow her shadow to linger in my life. But I didn't stop there. I started posting snapshots of my new reality on social media, not the curated version of happiness, but the raw, unfiltered moments of rediscovery. Pictures of weekend hiking trips, dinner with friends, and the new hobby I'd picked up, boxing. No captions dripping with bitterness, no cryptic jabs at Donna, just a silent declaration that I was moving on. To my surprise, people noticed. My social circle expanded, and so did my opportunities. The weeks that followed the dinner were a whirlwind of emotions. On the surface, I had taken control of my life, shown Donna and the world that I was moving on. But inside, I was navigating the aftermath of something deeper, more painful. It wasn't just the betrayal that hurt, it was the realization that the woman I had built my life around was capable of tearing it all apart without a second thought. I wasn't ready to speak to her again. Not yet. But it seemed Donna had other plans. One evening, just as I was settling in after work, there was a knock at my door. I wasn't expecting anyone, and when I opened it, there she was. Donna. Her eyes were red-rimmed, her face pale. She looked like she'd been crying for hours. "Paul," she said softly, almost pleadingly. I wanted to slam the door in her face, to tell her she had no right to be here. But instead, I stepped aside and let her in. "I don't know why I came," she said, standing awkwardly in the living room. I couldn't stay away anymore." I crossed my arms and leaned against the wall, watching her closely. "What do you want, Donna?" "I want to talk," she said, her voice trembling. "Please. I need to talk to you." I gestured toward the couch. "Fine. Talk." She hesitated, then sat down, her hands twisting nervously in her lap. "I know I'm the last person you want to see right now. I know I don't deserve your forgiveness, or even your time. But I can't go on like this, Paul. I can't pretend that I'm okay when I know I've destroyed everything good in my life." I stayed silent, letting her words hang in the air. "I was stupid," she continued, her voice cracking. "I let myself believe that what I had wasn't enough, that I needed something more. And now I see how wrong I was. I see what I've lost." Her words struck a chord, but I refused to let her see it. I couldn't afford to let her think there was any path back for her. "What exactly are you hoping for, Donna?" I asked finally. "Do you think you can just come here, say you're sorry, and everything will go back to the way it was?" "No," she said quickly. "I know I can't undo what I've done. But I need you to know how much I regret it. How much I hate myself for hurting you." I laughed bitterly. "You hate yourself? That's rich. Try being the one who had to find out his wife wasn't the person he thought she was. Try being the one left picking up the pieces while you were off playing house with someone else." She flinched but didn't look away. "I deserve that," she said quietly. "I deserve everything you're feeling. But I had to tell you how sorry I am. I had to try." Her voice cracked again, and for a moment, I saw the woman I used to know, the one I had loved so deeply. But that woman was gone, replaced by someone who had made choices I could never understand. "I don't know if you'll believe this," she said, tears streaming down her face, "but I never stopped loving you, Paul. Not for a second." I shook my head, my voice sharp. "You don't betray someone you love, Donna. You don't lie to them, sneak around, and destroy their trust. That's not love." "I know," she whispered. "I know I've lost you. But I needed to tell you how much I regret it. How much I wish I could take it all back." I stared at her, my emotions a tangled mess. I had spent weeks convincing myself that I didn't care anymore, that I was better off without her. But now, faced with her raw regret, I felt the weight of it all crashing down on me. "Do you know what the worst part of all this is?" I said finally. "It's not the betrayal. It's not even the lies. It's the fact that you made me doubt myself. You made me question whether I was enough, whether I ever meant anything to you at all." Her sobs grew louder, and she buried her face in her hands. "You were everything to me, Paul. I was the one who wasn't enough. I see that now." I wanted to believe her. I wanted to believe that her regret was real, that she truly understood what she had done. But even if she did, it didn't change the fact that the damage was done. "I've made my decision, Donna," I said, my voice steady. I'm moving on. I'm building a life without you. She looked up at me, her eyes wide with desperation. Please, Paul. Don't say that. Don't give up on us. There is no us, I said firmly. Not anymore. Her face crumpled, and she let out a heartbreaking sob. I don't know how to live without you, she said. That's not my problem anymore, I replied. You made your choice, Donna. Now you have to live with it. She stayed for a few more minutes, pleading and crying, but I didn't waver. When she finally left, I felt a strange sense of relief. For the first time in weeks, I felt like I could breathe again. That night, I sat alone in my apartment, reflecting on everything that had happened. The anger and sadness were still there, but so was something new: acceptance. Donna's betrayal had shattered the life I thought I knew, but it had also given me the chance to start over. And for the first time in a long time, I was ready. Months turned into a year, and life began to settle into something resembling normalcy. But it wasn't the old normal, it was something entirely new. I kept my distance from Donna. After that final conversation, I made it clear that there was nothing left to discuss. The divorce proceedings were straightforward. Donna didn't contest anything. It was almost as if she knew fighting would only prolong the inevitable. The papers were finalized within a few months, and with them, the last formal ties between us were severed. Looking back, the most surprising realization wasn't about Donna or the affair, it was about myself. For years, I had built my identity around being a husband, a partner, someone who thrived in the security of a stable relationship. I thought that defined me. But when that foundation was ripped away, I discovered something unexpected: I didn't need it. I learned that my worth wasn't tied to someone else's approval or affection. Donna's betrayal wasn't a reflection of my inadequacy, but of her own failings. That realization was liberating. For the first time in years, I felt like I could focus entirely on myself, not as part of a couple, but as an individual. I began setting new goals. Some were small, like getting back into shape, picking up old hobbies, and reconnecting with friends I'd neglected over the years. Others were bigger. I started exploring new career opportunities and even took a leap of faith by transitioning into a consulting role that allowed me more freedom. I discovered a passion for traveling, something Donna had never been particularly interested in. In every corner of my life, I found ways to fill the void that the marriage had left behind. But the truth was, the void wasn't as large as I feared. From what I heard through mutual friends, Donna wasn't doing as well. Julian, the choreographer, had apparently moved on within months, leaving her with nothing but the wreckage of what she had destroyed. She tried to rebuild, but her career in the dance world had taken a hit. Word of her unprofessional entanglement had spread, and it seemed her reputation was tainted. Occasionally, Donna would try to reach out. She sent me a few emails and even left a voicemail once, but I never responded. I didn't see the point. What was left to say? Her regret was obvious in every word she wrote. She apologized, begged for forgiveness, even hinted at wanting a second chance. But I couldn't give her that. Forgiveness, perhaps, I could offer in time. But a second chance? Never. I began sharing snippets of my life on social media, not for show, but because I genuinely felt proud of the life I was building. Photos of a solo trip to Italy. A video of me skydiving, something I'd always wanted to do but never dared. Posts about new books I was reading, new foods I was trying, new places I was exploring. The reactions were overwhelmingly positive. It was inspiring to see how many people had been through something similar and had come out stronger on the other side. There was one unexpected consequence of my new life: I began dating again. It started casually, a coffee here, a dinner there. At first, I worried that my trust issues would sabotage anything meaningful. But as I met new people, I realized I wasn't as broken as I feared. Eventually, I met someone who changed everything. Her name was Laura, and she was nothing like Donna. She was grounded, honest, and fiercely independent. Donna and I crossed paths one last time, almost 2 years after our divorce. It was at a mutual friend's wedding. I hadn't expected her to be there, but when she walked into the reception hall, I felt nothing. No anger, no sadness, no longing. Just indifference. She approached me during a quiet moment, clearly nervous. "Paul," she said, her voice tentative. I nodded politely. "Donna." She hesitated, as if searching for the right words. "I just wanted to say, I'm sorry. For everything." "I know," I said simply.